So I think we've done quite a lot of sales up until this point.
Yep.
I think in the first
Everything
episode,
sales has been salesy.
yeah, everything sales has been quite sales focused. But I think in the first episode, we mentioned that it would be sales, leadership, training, management.
Yeah, it's called everything sales, right? Everything
Am I
they
missing
do.
anything out from that list?
Sales, leadership, management. We can even dive into recruiting the right type of salespeople and what you look for at
I've got stuff to say.
some point. I'm sure you've got stuff to say, but I always get asked about what I look for in people. So that's just a whole nother podcast. But yeah,
Okay.
we can do like management. But yeah, everything sales, which is the whole idea of the podcast, was anything to do with sales.
Yeah.
Even what you do in the morning before you go do sales. Everything sales.
Okay. Basically, we've talked about sales. Today we're going to be talking about leadership.
Sales.
Today is leadership and leadership in sales.
Yep. Can I just say a point in leadership, even though it's sales, I think leadership's leadership. I'm going to make that first point. So it's not specific to sales. I think this is transferable to any industry in any field that you're in whatsoever.
Yeah, but that's what I wanted to say before we kind of get into anything.
I'll steal your thunder.
Well, no. Just don't want me to say it and then you can know what you think.
Okay, I'll let you talk and then I'll answer.
Thank you. I think it's important to say before we get into this, obviously we know whenever we talked about sales, we talked a little about your sales career and 21 years that you've had thus far.
I can't remember. I was actually saying this morning, I might be closer to 23 here. I don't know, 2002 years like this year, 24. So if I started in 2002 and it was December, it quickly became 23. So in 23, so it became, 21 years. 21.
It will be 21 in December. It'll be 22 in December.
It's okay.
Anyway,
So
between 21 and 23 years
18.
experience in sales.
I've done 21, I'm coming on 22.
So it'll be 22 in December.
On December 13th, it'll be 22 years of being in sales in one capacity or another.
Okay.
But just I've started learning how to lead and train teams from week 2 of that.
Good. So
Sales wasn't difficult.
I think we know that you've got a big background in sales, but I think it's also just important before we go on and you start talking about leadership, the background that you've got in that. So you've run teams, you know, across different continents. You've run sales teams in the UK, Australia, America. Right now in the UK alone, you're probably across different offices in one way or another dealing with, what would you say, 150 people across
Got
the
150 in a good day, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, people's attendance into work, isn't it? That 150. But there should be 150. It's probably more like 110, 120 every day.
Yeah.
So
you've got that, but as well as you've got other businesses where you very much lead in that way.
Yep.
As well as the sales team, though, there's all the back end of it. And I think the more the operation side and I guess where I'm a bit more involved, also leading teams and that. So you've got a lot of experience in leadership, which I think is why it's fair for you to talk about it. And you're not just making things up as you go along.
a couple of things I want to point out first. And this isn't to brag, it's just to maybe it is to brag, but just so you understand the type of leadership. So it's not, I've never walked into a leadership role. I've never walked into a team. Every team that I've ever led has been hired and trained and developed from scratch. So we don't just lead and manage sales teams. We build sales teams and build sales agents from scratch, and I always have done. So these are also leadership's been super important in my world because it's always been commission only. Well, not always in my sales career, at least anyway. In other companies, maybe not so much that I look after other things that I do. But in a sales capacity, it's always been commission based. Salespeople that I've led, right? It's always been people in that, which for me brings a bigger degree of difficulty and a bigger degree of leadership that's needed because, all right, so there I just say to you, I'm your boss, you need to do it. Basically, contractually, I tell you what to do, right? But, and I hate saying, but I cringe when I even say, but even when I say that, it makes me cringe because that's not who I am. It's not how I think about
closed
it.
doors, he always
I'm
says,
your
I'm the
boss.
boss.
You will respect my thought.
Wakes up in the morning and looks at himself and says, there's the boss.
I've got plaques above my bed, so when I wake up, I see you're the boss, right? But yeah, I think it brings another degree of difficulty and a very different level of leadership needed when you're dealing with people that are independent. You're dealing with people who contractually don't have to listen to a word that comes out your mouth. You know, if I'm a manager who employs people, and you know, there's to a certain degree you have to do as I tell you to do. So I think your leadership drilled into me for the very beginning. So I've had unbelievable training in leadership for the past 21 years. Still getting trained in leadership, still trying to figure out how to be a better leader of people. But I was always taught that it's not about managing people, it's not about being a boss, it's about leading, which we'll dive into here. But you know, I think if I look at other industries and go, if I learned to lead in a restaurant where I could see people every day and where I could manage and employ, then I would have been taught a very different style of leadership. I probably would have been taught a lot more management than I would have been leadership. So by default, the industry I'm in, the type of people that we deal with and the people we have to lead in contractual agreements and all that stuff, it was leadership was drilled into me. Like I would never call myself a manager. I hate calling myself a boss. I hate saying I'm a director of a company or a CEO. I hate all that stuff. I just look at it like I'm the leader, which is the first amongst equals if you like your Viking history. So I'm just James, the sales guy, who just happens to be the best person at the group. So therefore I'm the leader, the leader of the pack, right? Like a wolf, they're all equal, but if you're the leader, you're the people that people follow, right? You're the person that people follow.
Okay. So what does being a leader mean to you then?
Ooh.
This is the question he said he could do the whole podcast on. So this is my part out. Bye.
What does leadership mean to me? Okay. What leadership means to me, and I think first of all people have to understand with leadership, is leadership's a lifestyle. It's not a job. There's not a job. I know millions of people. I'll tell you a funny story in a second actually about my boy's experience of becoming a PT. To be a real leader, leadership to me means that you have to be the best example possible. If you're going to manage people, first of all, you have to be a great person. If you're going to manage other human beings, you have to be a good version of a human being. Moral compass, work ethic, empathy, there's loads of things that come into that, right? So first of all, you got to remember that you're leading in people, so you're leading human beings, right? So you've got to be, if I want to lead human beings, I have to be a better human being than them, first of all, right? That to me is leadership, is I have to be better than the people. Because why would humans follow me if I'm not a better human than them? I don't like really follow you, really follow. Not do as I told because you're the boss, I just feel like I have to, but choose to buy into you. And we'll get into that in history and Alexander the Great and all that kind of stuff, how people chose to do stuff, right? Now, dictatorships force people to do things. Real leaders get people who want to do things for them, right? But I think leadership to me as well is if you're going to be, whatever field you're in, if you want to call yourself a leader in the industry, then you have to lead in the industry. Here's the funny story. So my boy's a PT, right? And call him Goggins sometimes, Mr. 13 mile a day. And, you know, I'm very proud of him. He's quite fit young man, solid, ripped. Get very jealous. He's 27-year-old, hormones and whatever, right? But he he's worked all these years to become a PT. He's head over heels in love with it. He got really excited. He qualified. He got a job in a gym. I went on holiday for 2 weeks and I came back. I called him up and I'm like, how's the PT going? How's the gym going? He says, I quit. I says, why'd you quit? He says, Dad, they were all eating donuts and none of them trained.
This is the PTs.
This is the PTs. So he went to work for a gym. I'm not going to slag any brands off here. He went to work for a very well-known gym, excited about going in his career path as a PT. Now, he's my son, so he's had leadership drilled into him. I look at my job as a dad is to lead him as an adult, right? I need him to want to follow my I don't tell him to do it because I'm his dad, right? So I see my job with him. So he's only ever been run someone who's trying to be a good example in everything they do. And obviously when he talks to me about work, we're starting a new brand, which is a health lifestyle. And I'm like, well, I need to look like the healthiest 44-year-old everybody knows, or why would anybody listen to me about a healthy lifestyle, right? So he's been running this. Quits his dream job within 2 weeks because when he's walking, he says he was sitting there and somebody brought in donuts and he's like, are you serious? We're eating donuts? He evidently didn't eat donuts. He's like, none of them trained, Dad. I'm like, what do you mean none of them train? He's like, crazy. These people that people are paying money to get health advice from are sitting in the office eating donuts and none of them go to the gym. He went, I just couldn't handle it. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
And why does it make no sense? Sorry, go.
There's a point with that.
And so a leader to me, like if I was a PT, I'd have to have 10% body fat. I'd have to have abs. I'd have to be physically fit. If I'm going to teach people strength training, I'd have to be strong. If I'm going to teach people endurance, I have to have endurance. If I'm a leader in that field, Like if I'm going to lead football players, I should be good at playing football. So a leader to me is the best example of whatever you're doing. Like if I'm going to follow someone to war and have a choice of candidates to follow, touchy subject right now, right? Who am I going to follow into what? Am I going to follow a decorated person who's been through 6 wars and who's willing to go to war and lead everybody for the front? Or am I going to go to the pen pusher that got voted in somewhere? I tell you whose side I'm picking. That's it. I'll choose to fight with that person, because we used to say this as leaders in the office, like, would you go to war with me? Was our way of saying, do you think that person's a good leader or not? Would you go to war with that person? And if the answer was yes, it's because they're a good example. Again, go back to that Viking. The Vikings used to call the leader the first amongst equals. It wasn't a dynasty. You weren't born into it. It wasn't a bloodline. For the most part, there was periods in Viking history where there was. But true Vikings, it was the first amongst equals. It was just a common person who was just best. But if you watch all those movies, if you watch ancient Greeks, ancient Rome, anything about Alexander the Great, Genghis Khan, if you look back in all these great leaders and you watch the battle scenes, who's the first to run at the enemy? The leader. If you watch, and you watch these, you start to see movies different. You know, like if you watch movies about history, even if it's a movie with Colin Farrell pretending to be Alexander the Great, still based on truth. And you watch, I watched this 300 in the plane the other week again, and Gerard Butler, and you know, it's quite cheesy, but I really love it because he's always the first to run and always the first to get into battle. But if you watch those movies and watch English royalty and all the movies, where's the king?
In his castle.
The person that was born into the role, the manager, is sitting at the back, right? And so leadership to me is the first to do everything. Leadership to me is you're the top 1% of whatever you're supposed to be doing, or at least you're an exceptional example of whatever you're talking about. That's that. If I'm going to teach people how to drive cars, I should probably drive car. But I think a big problem with leadership is a lot of people mistake it with management, and it's a title. And we know people who say one thing, everybody does, who say they're a leader, and within work they look like a leader, but it's not a lifestyle. Someone who's healthy when they're around people but sneaks around the corner to eat chippies when they're not. That happens. You know, the PT talking a good game.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But then going and eating donuts. Sitting doing I just don't know how PTs can fathom sitting lying to someone, talking about how they should take care of themselves better, and then go eat a donut.
Yeah, probably telling their clients they shouldn't be doing that.
No. And I'll tell a story, because we're going to tell stories. And this is how much deep I take my job. I chose leadership, right? I chose the path of leading other people. Don't get me wrong, sometimes I wish I did choose the path of leading other people and I was a nomad who just worked off my laptop and didn't have to deal with humans and communicated through a chat bot. And, you know, sometimes I'm like, you know, I wish I didn't choose this path.
Yeah.
Because we'll get into that later, which is difficult, etc. But this is how serious I take leadership. So I says that I was going to stay off processed sugar, right? I'm off it again, by the way. I'm done.
Okay.
I'm just done. I caught myself doing it again. I'm like, what am I doing? But anyway, you'll remember I says, I'm not going to eat processed sugar for a year. I'd stayed off alcohol for a year up until then. I'm 2.5 years, no drinking anything anymore. I won't do that. I'm not saying I'll never do that again. Who knows what I'll be like when I'm 70 and bored. Fingers crossed. You missed a good time, right?
Fingers crossed.
Amanda hates that I don't drink because she says it used to be a good time. But I'm just going to say, everybody that goes out with me sober realises that I'm just as much a good time sober as I am drunk.
Yeah, but you just don't go out as much.
So we're staying off sugar for a year. I'm Easter time and holiday with the family. We're in Gran Canaria. And it was really funny to watch how addicted I was to sugar, right? Because everybody, you're addicted to sugar, right? So the kids are eating ice cream, and this is going to sound a little bit weird and creepy, right, for everybody who's watching, but the kids were getting ice cream, they were getting pastries, they were getting desserts, and who was getting sent for the ice cream? Me. I was getting sent for the ice cream. So you're in 30-degree heat, maybe 20, maybe I'm lying, maybe it was 20-degree heat because it was Easter time, right, in the Canaries. And every time I was getting ice cream, it's going down my hands. Now, naturally, when an ice cream goes down your hands, what do?
You lick it.
You lick it, right? And I'm like fighting with my discipline. I'm like, really want to lick it. And I'm like, my wife's like, just lick it up. I'm like, no, I can't have sugar. And the kids got pastries and croissants and my kids get chocolate. They call them chocolate rolls, but they're chocolate croissants, right? Pan of chocolate as well, right? But other chocolate, whatever they've got, the croissants.
Something with chocolate on it. There's chocolate on it.
Anyway, who's the one got at the shop to buy? Me.
Yeah.
But when the kids are getting this stuff, I didn't realise I was doing my wife's head in. proper Glaswegian term, which means annoying my wife for anybody that's not Glaswegian, right? If anybody American or English watching this, doing my head in means you're annoying me or you're getting on my nerves, right? Because I was doing things with the kids. I'm like, can I just smell the pastry? Can I just... Can I just smell your cheesecake? Right, I was just like, dying just to take a bite of sugar.
I would love to know what passerbyers thought of you just
And it was the kids thought it was hysterical, right? My wife's like, I'm doing this in restaurants. I don't care who's watching. As much as I care about my appearance, I don't care about being myself around people. Like, if I want to sniff the pastry, I'm sniffing the pastry, all right? So anyway. So we're in the middle of the street, we're getting ice creams, and I'm moaning. I'm not moaning negatively. I'm just like, I'd kill for a bit of that. And oh my God, and just, I'm like really, really fighting with myself not to have sugar here. And my wife says to me, she got really upset at me. I could tell you the shop where we're standing outside in Gran Canaria. And she says she's just lost it. And my wife's version of lost it, right?
Yeah.
So it's quite quiet.
Still quite calm.
Probably quite calm. I make her sound like she's a Hulk sometimes, but she never gets angry, right? She gets her version upset. And she's like, can you just bloody take a bit of the ice cream? And I'm like, I'm not, I'm off sugar. She's like, no one will know you're on holiday. And I'm like, I'll know.
Yeah.
I'll know. I'm like, do you understand that I tell people that they have to be accountable to their actions? I remember shouting this to my wife in the middle of the street. I'm like, what kind of leader would I be if the second nobody can see me, I tell them I'm off sweets and then I go away and eat an ice cream? I'm not doing that. That's hypocritical. And my wife says to me, there's something wrong with you. And I'm like, well, you just don't get it.
That's what we all say.
So for me, it's not a clock in, clock out.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, it is. It's a clock in, clock out. When other people are watching, they're a great example. They're a good leader. They're that. But I think a missing element for a lot of people is when backs are turned. It's what you do when nobody's watching. The person that trained me in leadership says, imagine everybody could see you all the time. He's like, if you're going to be a leader, you're going to be in show 24/7. You never know who's watching. He's like, it's a lifestyle. If you're going to be a good person, you have to choose to be a good person all the time. I catch myself picking litter up. I was walking through, there was litter in the hotel in Dubai, and I was picking the litter up as I was walking past. Because it's a habit for me not to want a place looking messy for other people around me. And there's just, I find it weird when I do it. I'm like, what am I doing? This is weird. And but again, all the stuff that I do when I'm around people that I'm responsible for leading. I was going to say in charge, but I'm not in charge. It's just who I am. And I always tell people, you'll never catch me out. Remember when everybody used to get excited about Catch Me Out because I was off processed sugar, but I was allowed to eat like dark chocolate. I'm talking about like 85-90% dark chocolate, cocoa, whatever. And that was good because that's actually good for you, right? I could eat honey and fruit because the sugar process is very different. And it's just funny how, it just shows you how people think, right? Because to be a leader, you have to be perfect, and people are waiting for you to be imperfect to call you out.
Well, like this morning. This morning's a perfect example.
Oh, the guys thought I was going to be late.
Yeah. We talk so much about timekeeping, and timekeeping, I would say, is one of your biggest sort of pet peeves, or something that if a time is set, that means you are there at that time, sat at a table, ready to go. Anyway, so this morning you said everyone to be in for 10, and you came in 10 on the dot, bearing in mind before that you were doing other stuff for the office and taking stuff from...
On the bottom of the stairs on a call.
Yeah, well, yeah. And before that, you were already doing trips, tidying up the office and everything. But you walked in at 10 on the dot and people got very excited thinking you were late because they thought, finally, we've got him. But you're on time, so don't worry.
I would go to work. I'd wake up. I'd get in the car in my boxer shorts and walk through town in my boxer shorts just not to be late.
Yeah.
Because I feel really big on if I need people to respect the words that are coming out of my mouth, I have to be perfect on it. I should never a leader should never have to apologise for their actions. I'm never going to apologise, not because I'm not apologetic and not because I'm not sorry if I make mistakes, just because from my position I can't put myself in that position to make mistakes. Nobody wants an apologetic leader.
Yeah.
But loads of people do it. You know, so for me, again, get back to leadership. Whatever I'm going to teach people, or whatever I'm going to, disciplines I'm going to try and imprint in people, or whatever I'm going to show people, I need to be exceptional at that first in front of them, i.e. sales, right? Again, I've nothing, I'm sure there's some PTs out there who are exceptionally knowledgeable and they're great. But if you don't look like you're in the shape of your life,
Yeah.
and you're asking me for money and health advice, you're not getting my money. I'm just not doing it. No one likes a hypocrite. So I take leadership very seriously, and a lot of people don't. And to my own detriment sometimes, to be fair, because it's difficult. And you always have to be very conscious about what you look and what you say and how you think and how you're coming across and your brand and all that stuff. So
yeah, it's a lifestyle. There is no off. There is no switch to stop it. It's always, you're always on, and you're always, even when you're on holiday, you are still talking and acting in that way. You can't just be like, okay, I'm off on holiday for 2 weeks, so I'm just gonna do what I want and, you know, forget everything that I tell everyone to do for the last 21 years.
Yep.
And I'm just gonna live my life for 2 weeks.
Imagine. I can't imagine it. But you know, if I'm going to preach positivity, I need to be positive.
Because it's inauthentic as well.
Yeah, you got to be real, and you can't be real if you turn it on and turn it off. It's not who you like. Leadership for me, you got to become a leader. You got to become a leader. You don't act a leader. You don't rehearse being a leader. You don't pitch practice being a role play being a leader. You just be a leader.
Just are.
If I was telling someone this morning, but like, how do I get my sales? So it was a sales leader, and he was saying, how do I get my sales team to be better? And I says this wee cheesy phrase that I heard years ago, and I'm like, you have to be the change, mate. I'm like, if your team,
so true, though.
yeah, you need to get better. You're the leader, so they're following to some capacity what you're doing. So you need to not only make the change first, but then they have to see the results, and then they'll naturally make the changes because they've seen the results. But until they see the results, they're not going to make a change. Again, until I see your six pack, I'm probably not going to listen that much. But if you're intro to me, or I go onto your Instagram page, I'm looking for health advice, and you're ripped, I'm going to listen way quicker to it. But that's the other part about leadership is you want your team to get better. You have to get better. So it's a constant battle of improvement, which you and I both know. I'm always, it makes you go in yourself sometimes because you question whether you're good enough or not. And then it's quite weird when people do buy into you because you're like, why are people buying into me? That makes no, like me even doing stuff on social media, I'm like, why would anybody listen to a word that comes out of my mouth? So I think also, I suppose, humility for leaders, you know?
Yeah, no, 100%.
So first amongst equals, it's a full-time job, it's a lifestyle, it's who you become, and you got to take it seriously.
Yeah.
And not say one thing and do another.
Make it your lifestyle. I like it. So what would you say makes a successful leader, or how would you define a successful leader then?
Someone who's going to become a successful leader, or someone who's already a successful leader?
How would you look at someone, you know, a group of people? How would you know, okay, that is a successful leader, that is the person who is leading successfully? That's the example. Actions.
Not even results to get go. Actions. Actions. If you want to know if someone's going to be a good leader of people, go watch them with people when they think you're not watching. Love doing that. Love it. Love doing that.
Yeah.
Being there when people don't think you're there, you'll see who's who.
The real them.
Yeah, like when you're the leader, everybody tends to act a certain way when you rock. It's like your mum and dad, right? You act a certain way when mum and dad are about.
Yeah.
As soon as they get the room, you change. You act a certain way. Wait, you know, I used to go to my nana's. I used to walk into my nana's all the time, and I must have, like, I now remember my mum walking in my nana's. My mum would take the mickey, which for anybody who's not Glaswegian, take the mickey means make fun of me, and she'd say, "Who was that? Who was that wee guy?" And I'm like, "What? It's my nana."
I think butter would melt.
Yeah. And man, I was my nana's favourite, obviously, because when I went there, I became this person that I wasn't, right?
Yeah.
I forgot the point of that, but
actions. Who are you around other people?
Oh, when other people, right?
Yeah.
So we all tend to change, but you know, if I like watching people, when they don't think I'm watching, because that tells me if they've got humility. That tells me if they actually care about other people. That tells me if they're a nice person. You know, if someone's like wanting to become a leader and really lovely, but I hear them slagging someone off in the corner, that's not someone that's got the traits of a leader. We all have our opinions of other people and what people do and how people think in political and sport, and we all have our opinions, but But great leaders understand that everybody's got their own opinions and tend to keep their opinions to themselves. Great leaders have empathy. Great leaders respect other people. You know, one of our friends used to say, "You do you." Do you know what I mean? And that's like, you know, I just let everybody be themselves and you know, just, you know, you be you and them be them and just find a way of getting on with everybody. So I think that's the start of somebody's I think to be a really good leader, results can matter. You can be a leader in your field just purely based on results, right? There's some examples of this where leaders in field aren't. But are people going to follow them into the next field? Nah.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think there's been times in the past where people, you know, they'll want to work in a specific role or do something specific or even just still be within the industry. And they've said it's because, well, you're there. And they can't explain what that means, but it is. And if Wolf James ever leaves, I'll go with him. I'll go do whatever he does. And I think it's because it is those actions of it is that, like, the authenticness as well, where you know that that's you as when people aren't there. And you know that that version of you that we get is the same version that everyone gets. And so I think that also does come across. And again, we've said authentic quite a few times in a few different podcasts, but I think it is that like authenticness of like how genuine of a person are they?
Yeah, you actually have to care.
Who they actually are as opposed to a show for the status. I think a lot of people want to be a leader or in leadership because they want the status. I almost think true leaders don't care about the status and don't care about like the titles and don't care about all of that. That doesn't mean as much to those people.
Couldn't care less about titles. I hate when people introduce me like I'm the bloody queen in Game of Thrones. This is James, he's had this much success and he's done this and he's done that. I'm like, it's just James.
I remember you saying to someone last year, so they did this massive introduction of who you are and, you know, this is how much money James made last year and this is who he is. And about 20 minutes and you were just stood there so awkward. I remember afterwards you pulled him to the side and said, please never do that. So this is James from Springman.
I'm just James. I to say that when people, this is James, he's the managing director and, you know, he's had this much success in this. And I hate people who, I'm not going to buy into that. It's about buying into people. A leader's someone who adds value to others. Again, let's talk about first amongst equal. If you introduce yourself or somebody else with a title, what are you telling them? We're not equal. We ain't equal.
Yeah, true.
I was talking about this to some of my leadership team yesterday. I'm like, if anybody introduces himself with the title, it's not a leader, man. Hey, I'm James. I'm the director.
Yeah.
Who cares?
I'm the boss,
actually cares about anybody. I care about what people do. I care about how they make me feel. I care about the value they add. I care about where they're going and whether I'm interested in going. I couldn't care less how many Ferraris you have or what she's are, how many offices you run or how many people. Like, none of that stuff means anything to me. You need to earn my respect. And that's another thing I look at as a leader. I've been doing this, again, it says at the beginning, 22 years, right? 18-year-old kid walks into my office, got to learn sales, right? Or anybody walks into my office, I know my only job is to earn that person's respect. I don't expect them to listen to a word that comes out of my mouth, legitimately listen and legitimately open themselves up to being coached by me until I earn that person's respect. How do I earn the person's respect? First of all, I'm a nice person to them. I treat them better than anybody else who's treated them their whole entire life. I treat them better the first day in my office, they'll feel more comfortable than I did the first day anywhere else. We walk them out, we thank them for their time, like we make them feel super special, right? Sometimes, this is going to sound maybe bad, but I'm like, if you want to lead people and want to buy into you, you should treat them better than their own parents. The parents get respect for being the parents, right? I'm nobody to them. I need to work hard to earn it. So I have to be nicer to them than everybody else that they meet.
Yeah, true.
That day. Respect's not given, it's earned. And real respect. So anybody who's got, I can't handle like titles and badges and door titles, and some people love it and it's fine, but please don't let that be your identity with people and then call yourself a leader. I am James, I'm the director. I hate that. Even without, I used to catch my wife, and sometimes still catch my wife doing this, and people will say, which is not so much, I'll say I have different businesses, right? But it used to make me cringe even saying I as a business owner. The wee guy for Springburn that learned sales, right? And so people would say, what do you do for a living? I'm like, sales.
Yeah.
Now what kind of sales? I'm like,
still do that.
Door knocking, whatever. My wife would butt in and go, oh, he actually has a couple of businesses, and she'd big it up. And I'm like, hey, it's cringy. Even now when people say, what kind of car do you drive? I cringe.
Yeah.
I cringe. My wife, Brody, says to me all the time, don't cringe, like, say it with confidence. I'm like, I'm so scared of people thinking I'm that guy. Even in the Instagram posts, or, you know, when people talk about watches and people can't wait to ask. When you see people leading people into asking what kind of car they want, if you define yourself by what you own and you define yourself by your title and your position, that to me is no leadership.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I love fast cars and I love the idea that I'm the boss for different reasons, but it's not so I can tell people I'm the boss. It's not. I love being the leader because I love being the leader. I love the responsibility. It's not so I can tell people I'm the leader.
So how did you come to love it? What was your journey to get into leadership, and what was the point that you knew that that's what you wanted to do and that was the path that you wanted to go down? Because as we said, you were great at sales, so you could have just said, I want to be a really, really good sales guy, you know, make loads and loads of money. But what was the point you decided that leadership was for you?
When did I decide leadership was for me, and why did I decide leadership was for me? All right. So one of my mentors, or was one of my mentors, and the person I try and mimic as much as humanly possible, is a guy called Jesse Young, right? So anyway, another story. So I'm brand new into the sales industry. I like the idea of leadership. I like the idea of being in charge. I'm into it. But if I'm being really honest, I was into it. It was monetary value.
Yeah. Why most people go into sales.
What's better? Yeah, what's better than you doing sales?
Yeah.
50 people doing sales for you, right? So I'm like, that sounds cool. And you get to sit behind it. So at first, I was attracted to the boss stuff, you know, being the big dog, having a boss there, having your own corner office. Yeah, having a big, you know, a big ego desk. I call them ego desks.
Yeah.
You know, I just bought a desk and it's half the size of this one, and it's a wee stand-up one, and it looks like a puny desk, but I'm like, I don't need an ego desk to justify my existence.
Yeah.
It's a comfortable desk. I think it's really funny when even I'm on Zooms, I'm like, let me bring a desk. Anyway.
It's not a statement desk.
Anyway, but let's go back to what got me excited about leadership. I can tell you the actual night when I decided who I wanted to be in the world of business, right? So this guy called Jesse Young, who still to this day, I remember looking at this guy and thinking, if I can turn it to be half the person this man is, I'm going to be a really good person, right? So we go into a restaurant called the Maggio's in Glasgow. I'd never been to a nice restaurant. I don't ever actually remember going into a restaurant in Glasgow city centre as a kid, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, Chippies, McDonald's, Greg's, you know. And
yeah.
So anyway, we get into sales. I'm doing a good job. So he takes a couple of us out for dinner, and he takes my mentor out, and he's my mentor's mentor, right? So he's from Long Island, New York. He's just this really cool guy. Every time you spoke to Jesse, he made you feel like $1 million. First and foremost, how he made me feel inspired me. Like he was a guy who was a millionaire, and here's this 23-year-old kid from Springburn, and he treated me like I was one of his mates for the second I met him, right? But watching this guy, we're going for dinner, and we go into the restaurant, and we go in we're getting in, the guy at the door says, "Oh, Jesse, you're back," and blah blah blah. This is Glasgow, mind you, he's from the States, right?
So it's rarely here.
No, I didn't know this at this time. And there's a part in the story. So he goes in, Jesse went, so we sit down at the table. He's like, oh, table for whatever. And it's 11 o'clock at night in Glasgow, right? So we were sitting up there. I remember we were sitting at the back of the Maggio's. And the waiter comes up and he's like, hey, Jesse, how you doing? How you been? And he's shaking his hand. He's like this. And I'm like, this guy's important.
Yeah.
This guy's really, really important. So anyway, all these waiters treat him like royalty, right? So we get to the end of the night, we're walking out. And I says to him, just out of curiosity, Jesse, how many times have you been in this restaurant? Do you come here a lot? He says, it's my second time. I'm like, what? Wow. What do you mean it's your second time? He's like, I was here 2 nights ago. I'm like, what? How?
Yeah.
Point being, one, it showed me how differently people treated someone who was a leader and treated them nice. This is the good person point. And I learned that day how to be a good person to people, but also learned what you got in return for it. How they treated him like he was a celebrity long before Instagram. They were treating this guy like he was the male Kim Kardashian who'd just walked into the restaurant. All because he was a guy who understood his role as a person and a leader of people, his lifestyle, when he was dealing with a waiter, a cleaner, anybody, was he was just an excellent example of a human being who always tried to add value back to people he was coming in contact with. He taught me everybody should feel better for talking to you. And he taught me a wee trick that we've done in restaurants, which you know and you've experienced, that we walked into a restaurant once and they made us a table that didn't exist because they never had a table. We'd been there, what, 5 times?
Yeah.
Not a Jessie level where I go the second time they treat me like royal. Yeah, still we get to the point where the second time they treat me like that. I went to Gaucho yesterday and they're starting to treat me like that and starting to be nice, right? But he's like, just take 5 minutes to ask the waiter how their day was and don't just order, and take time out to get to know people. And, you know, if people know you care, they'll do you a wee bit different. And it's been a magic trick that I learned from a long time ago.
Yeah. There's a saying that you were saying, I'm going to butcher it so you can fix it when I get it wrong inevitably, but people don't
care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
He taught me that.
Yeah.
He taught me that. He's like, first of all, show people you care.
Yeah. And I think that's so true.
That's just, and there was never, and still to this day, that man, that human being, I've never seen a better leader. I've never seen somebody who was better leader of people. He was in the sales world. He would be like that in any industry. He could have chosen any industry he wanted and been a leader in that industry because he was a leader of people. He wasn't. That's when I knew who I wanted to be. I remember going home, and I'm sorry for the religious quote for anybody who's religious, and I'm like, it's like I would imagine like the voice of God. Yeah. When God speaks, people listen. You just listen because you're really into listening. And I think long before influencers, right? Yeah. Long before this stuff, this guy how he would captivate a room full of people, that when he spoke, how bought in people were into what he was saying, because he was such a good example of what he was talking about. And people bought, and people wanted to talk to him, and people wanted to listen to him, and people wanted to perform for him. I wanted to perform for him because he was such a good example of everything he was doing. You know, he had the image, he was professional, he was lovely, he was the hardest working person I knew, you know, drinking with this guy till 4 a.m. in New York, and he went straight to a client's meeting the next morning. I'm like, I don't know how you can do it. Even then I was like, I don't know how, where you going?
Hardcore.
Where are you going? He's like, go home and get changed, got a client meeting. I'm like, I'm going to my bed. Just another level, right? Yeah. And even to this day, I don't speak to him anymore. I know he's doing well. I don't know what he's up to these days, but even at this day, when I think about me becoming a leader, I think of that person. He's the person. So it wasn't the money, it wasn't the stuff. I just looked and went, that's the human being I want to be. Yeah. That lovely person. And if you were to meet him this day, I'm sure he's not changed whatsoever. He's just and I've never met a person who didn't walk away in love with him. Like there you go. That's it. I think a leader is something that people meet and quickly fall in love with.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's, I mean, I never met him, but I think even now, sometimes you'll still say, like, what would Jesse do in this situation? This is what you would do and stuff like that. So I think, again, that is a good sign of a leader where, you know, I don't know how many years, 10 years later, 10, 15 years later, I don't know how many years later, but you're still thinking.
Not spoke to him in about 10.
Like his approach and how would he handle this and what would he do in this situation and stuff like that. So I think that's a really, really good sign that it has a lifelong impact.
Even the way I smile.
Yeah.
Has to do with him at people. He just had this great big smile with people that when he smiled at them and asked how, his smile was genuine. It wasn't false. When he asked how you were, he'd either mastered the art of making it look like he cared, right? Or he cared. And from what I know from him, he actually cared. He is a great guy, you know? And it's funny because great leaders you'll see are great parents and great husbands and great wives and great mums and great sisters and great friends, and you know, they're just everybody who's around them. So they don't just lead in their profession. That's just who they are also in their personal life. Like people look up to them in their personal life. So yeah, that's when I decided who I wanted to be as a person and in business as well, because he was a very successful person. Funnily enough, at the time, drove the car that I always wanted to drive as well. I drove a Porsche 911. His was a turbo though. But yeah, he had the life, he had the charisma, he had the business, and just who he was as a person and where he stood, his moral compass, his business acumen. Is that the word? Business IQ? Anyway. Okay. That might be wrong.
That might have taught me a word there. I don't know that word.
Springburn, grammar. Didn't pay attention at school. But just how he held himself was just awesome, and how people responded to someone being such a lovely person who was such a good example for me. I'm like, all right, that's who I want to be. I don't like the management side of business. I cringe when I have to do it. I don't like, obviously, you have to manage people in a certain capacity and lead them, as you can't just lead and not manage, right?
Yeah.
But the management part for me still makes me feel icky. Because leadership's easy. You be a good example, people buy into you. It makes me feel icky when I have to give someone in trouble for something or discipline someone, or that part for me is not nice. The leading part's fun because, you know, people buy into you and people will only do things. So here's the way I'm thinking about leadership as well. If you've got a group of people, the only way, so if you're someone who's looking to run a sales team and get them to perform to their best, right? People by nature will only do things 100% if they choose to do it. I'll give you an example of this. So, we'll use you at school, right? Mum and dad tell you to clean your room. How do most people clean the room when they're told to clean the room?
Hide under the bed or cupboards.
Right? Hide under the bed or cupboards, right? And they do that stuff. Now, the next night, so you get told to do that, so you cleaned your room. Mum and dad come in and checked it, says it was okay, and go and play with your mates because your room's clean, right? So on face value, your room's clean, right? It looks clean. The next night, the good-looking guy, the big rugby player or whatever you're into, Amanda, the hunk, is coming to your house for some study time.
Okay.
How'd you clean your room?
Everything's getting tidied and cleaned.
Everything. You've got the white gloves on, testing it, you're cleaning everything, you're spraying nice stuff, you're washing things, your bed covers are made, your bed's lovely, it smells like you're making it, you're cleaning.
Yeah.
Both were the same task, but why did you do the second one? Number one, because you chose to do it, and number two, because it was a big win for you to do it. Lots of sales leaders make the mistake of just giving people the one which is bonusing. But you can bonus people all you want. You can drive people all you want. You can run the fanciest sales meeting in the world. But if people don't choose to perform, they won't. And so people have got to want to work for you. They've got to make that conscious choice. But who do you want to work for? I want to work for someone who's a good example. They're not hypocritical, shows me empathy, is a good person. I know is being genuine. You know, I always say if I catch I pay a guy £500 a month to coach me in my health, and he does my nutrition and training and he does everything. And I always say if I catch him with a donut in his hand, he's fired. Why would I pay someone for health advice who evidently isn't that healthy? I've nothing against donuts, by the way, everybody. I actually love a wee donut.
Sounds like you hate them.
I love a wee donut. But they just pay me £500 a month for health advice.
Yeah.
So if I want to eat a donut, I'll eat a donut. But if I was giving it health advice, that would be wrong of me to eat a donut. I'm telling people to stay off processed sugar, but then eating processed sugar, that makes me an absolute hypocrite.
Yeah. I think something that you said there is so when you're talking about like bonuses and you can like bonus people, but if they don't really want to do it, I think that's so true. And we've seen so many instances over the years of, you know, putting bonuses out for like sales agents or whatever, and nothing happening from it. You know, you would think numbers would double or triple or whatever, but nothing would happen from it. So, but then there's been times where, and there's one instance that comes to mind, you know, when there was a big target that had to be hit by a team that was in Glasgow a few years ago now in order for them to qualify and them to kind of go off and have their own campaign. And they had a really big mountain to climb on the last day. They had something like 20 sales that they had to do or whatever it was.
That's Ross Conley?
Yes.
Okay. Kyle?
Yeah.
Yeah, situation.
But because they were so, you know, on a mission together and inspired by Ross, the leader of that team, they made the impossible happen. And there's so many stories like that where if that reason why is enough and it's inspiring enough, people will go out and do it. That money doesn't mean as much to them.
People go to war for leaders and die for leaders. Look at history. People turn on dictators. People turn on managers. People go behind their backs on their quite. Look at that. Look at every dictatorship eventually happens. Gets overthrown and kicked out, or another dictator comes in and take it. But people eventually revolt against authority and authoritarians and dictators, right? And so, but look what people do for leaders. When people are bought into an idea, again, Alexander the Great, Genghis Khan, if you go look at these people, 300 actually has some truth behind it.
can tell you've
the
just
movie.
watched this movie. You've been talking about it a lot.
Because I really love watching it because visually, it's a fun movie, right? But visually, it's just, there's just so many messages there that are great. The Spartans could teach everybody a lot, right? About leadership and, really caring about you do really believe. But anyway, it's a whole nother story. But people chose to follow these people based on their vision.
Yeah.
People were willing to go away for their families for decades on these gallivanting around the world in the hope of changing the world in 1,000 years because they bought into these people. Like, if people are bought into someone, there's not a lot they wouldn't do. There's not. You got to look at that. Like, when people really believe in a leader, some people are even willing to die for what that person believes in or for that person, right? And you see that all the way through history. So there's definitely been times in my career. In fact, can I talk about 3 times I realised what leadership was and when I actually was being a good leader?
It's your journey to leadership, so yeah.
Yeah, so when I realised the impact that leadership had in people from my perspective, and when I realised that I was doing a good job as a leader, there was a couple of times, right? The first time in my career, I had a team of about 16 salespeople, right? Something along those lines. I was supposed to hit a target to get a promotion. More so, I was supposed to hit a target to start getting double the money. So I was going to get a double pay rise plus some bonus, right? Me nor the team. So anyway, some things happen and go on, and like in many other companies in the planet, I'm sure some people have moved the goalpost before. So the goalpost for my sales target got moved the night before I was supposed to go out and start the week of the sales target getting hit. Right, so I'm super confident because I'm hitting the sales target anyway. So I'm going to get this promotion. I'm going to get the money. And my director / boss / CEO, whatever it was at the time, decided to put the target up. Now, I was really upset. I didn't realise this at the time, but I actually had a teller when I was angry. So I'm down the stair in this bar, as you done in those days. You worked hard and drunk all night and then went back up, done sales, and that was just work hard, play hard, right? So it's green smoothies or nothing after 7.
Kombucha.
Or 1 meal, kombucha, a kefir. In those days it was booze, right? So I'm doing this, I'm angry because I'm like, this guy's told me for 11 months, if I hit this sales target, I get this reward. Part of it was my fault because I was being cocky and arrogant, right? I was trying to teach me a lesson, which was fine. But at the same time, I moved the goalposts. So I got down the stair in anger. I got this bar. The bar's called Fix, which used to be in Ingram Street in Glasgow, right? I forget it's a restaurant now. I forget which restaurant, just up for the Spanish butcher. Yeah. It's down the stair, but it used to be a bar called Fix, right? So I'm doing it in this bar. This gets me emotional when I talk about this story, by the way, because it's the first time I realised the impact I had and why. It was quite weird how people had been bought so much into me, right? Even though I was being a leader, I still didn't. I'd never felt the impact I'd had on other people. So anyway, sorry, I'm going off cue here. So there's a guy called Mohammed had my crew and a girl called Emma Burke, right? And Mohammed was just called Mohammed. Mo, we called him Wee Mo, right? Yes, Bud and No Bud was a bit odd. It came out as my half the time. But anyway, so they come down the stair and I'm drinking straight Jack Daniels. Now at this time, I didn't realise that the only time I drank straight Jack Daniels is when I was peed off, angry, upset, frustrated. And it was Mohammed that called out to me. He's like, what are you upset at? And I'm upset at this. So I'm the leader. So I'm like, for 10 minutes, I'm good, don't worry about it. No, what would I be upset at? Because I'm not going to go vent my frustrations. The thing I learned as a leader is shit goes up the way, not across and down.
Yeah.
Like if I've got shit to say, bad, negative stuff, if I've got a complaint, if I'm frustrated, that goes to whoever my leader is. It never goes across or down. So I'm playing the whole game thinking I'm hiding it. Not knowing that the Jack Daniels in my glass tells the very story I'm trying not to give it away.
Yeah.
And Mohammed Emma laughed and went, all right, we all know. They hung about with me for about 11 months, so they all knew. They're like, there's a direct connection to you drinking Jack Daniels to you being upset at stuff. And I'm like, oh, what do you mean? And like, so anyway, all right, I can trust these people. So I tell them and I'm like, I go on a rant. I'm like, he's just moved the goalposts, blah, 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 blah. And this is all for me. And bear in mind, the team get nothing more. I get more money. I get a bonus. I actually get to not go do sales a couple of days a week and stay in an office and not have to go knock doors or whatever I was doing at that time, right? And so I got on this rant. Now, he's put the sales target up 20%. So he's not put it up a bit. He put a jump on this. Yeah. In my head, I'm like, there's another 6 weeks of me getting to that, right? And feel like I'm being completely screwed. I thought I was being completely screwed over. And I'll never forget, and this is where it fills me up a little bit. Mohammed put his arm around my shoulder and looked at me and says, don't worry, buddy. We'll do whatever it takes for the next 2 weeks for you to get that. And it still makes me quite happy. Because I'm like, let me just dive deep into that. Why? Why would other human beings go work? Think about this, right? He says, we'll do whatever it takes. We'll go out early. We'll go home late. We'll work harder for 2 weeks so that you get more money. What? The human beings are completely selfish by nature. But when do people override their selfishness? When they're in love. And that's when I realised my people loved me. But that's also when I realised that I'd done right by my people. Yeah. Who does that? Who goes and... I wasn't anybody's boss, but let's just use boss because it's easy for anybody that doesn't work in our business structure to understand boss, right? Who do you know that went on a 2-week mission so that their boss could make more money with no benefit to them? That's nuts. That to me was their version of, I would go on the sword for you. I would die for you.
Them going to war with you?
It showed me, first of all, it was the first time I realised that I was being good. But there's some other stuff that happened in my career where I knew, there's wee things that happened where I knew I was doing a good job and I do right by people. Comments that people made. You actually made a comment once that made me realise that in London drunk.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that wasn't even part of the conversation, but I remember I don't know if you remember or don't, where you says, I can't remember, because I was talking about other businesses with what we do together and all my goals in life. And you say something to me which it didn't make me feel good. It made me realise that I'd done right by you. Because you says, I'll do anything, James Watson. It wasn't work. And that made me feel, I don't remember any of that night. I remember that. Because, again, there's a little indication there that the time I'd spent with you, I'd been the right example for you. And you were bought into me and not the company. It wasn't your title and your pay, which is important, right? But that showed me that I was doing right by you and I was being a good leader. It happened, I remember there was a kid that was just about to get a big promotion. We're running a big sales team. His name was Colin Moore. And I'd switched on to a different project. And he's like, I want to come in the project with you. And I'm like, but you're just about to have a big promotion. And, you know, you'd be going backwards. Why would you do that? And he looked at me and went, because you're doing it. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, I can't argue because you're doing it. I remember when I moved to Australia, I had people give up businesses to come and follow me to Australia and work for me and go back. I had managers who sat behind a desk making thousands of pounds a week who were willing to come to a different country, move their whole life and go back out doing direct sales. And I'm like, why would you do that? And they're like, because you're going. And I'm like, I find it still weird. I'm like, why? But who cares where I'm going? I'm going here because I'm going here. This is my journey. But that's what leadership is. If some leader says, I'm going here, you can measure the quality of a leader is where they go, how many people want to go with them. That's it. How many people say I go? If you think you're a leader in your industry, you might be a leader in your industry, but if you're a leader of people, if you quit that industry and go to another, how many people switch industries for you without you asking, without you poaching? That to me would be a true measurement. If I says I'm closing my business down in Glasgow and I'm going to move to Newcastle, I will very quickly see if people are bought into the job or people are bought into me based on how many people go, can I come? Like, can I uplift my whole life to be there for you? Because Newcastle, no offence, Deadwood, for Newcastle, it's not as good as Glasgow. So why would you downgrade your life for me?
Oh, the Geordies coming for you.
But those are, but that makes me feel not indebted. That's the wrong word. Every time things like that happen, I realise the responsibility I've got as a leader to other people. I have a responsibility. I have to go out my bed for people. We went through COVID and I had to go out my bed for people every single day. I was losing money, hand over foot, cost me a fortune. But we got up and we were positive and we ran Zoom calls every day for people and we kept work going even though them working cost me money. And I didn't make it. I lost, I was losing. But I had a responsibility as a leader to try and get my people through that as much as possible. I had a responsibility as a dad and a husband to lead and get them through that as much. Do you know what I mean? If I wasn't a leader, I would have probably just got really drunk for however long we were locked up for. It would have been a very different lockdown for me. But again, my responsibility was I have to be, it's the first amongst equals There's another thing that, I forget it now. Order out of chaos. A leader is someone who can make order out of chaos. When everything's chaotic, the leader's the one that brings order. That's it. And I remember my wife looking at me when lockdown came. She's like, how can you be so calm? And I says to her, because I just am. But part of me thinks, because that's my job here. It is nice to feel wanted. It is lovely for people to look up, but it's also a big responsibility. And the more people that look up to you, the bigger the responsibility to be a better person. And the bigger the group I manage and the higher level of people that I manage, then there's a responsibility on me to always be better, because the leader's the person in front. So as my team develops and my team grows, I can't allow my team to outgrow me, because if my team are before me in their fields, are better people than me, are more motivated than me, I'm not a leader anymore.
Yeah.
I can play boss. I can play boss. I can play experience. I can play money. I can play that because I'm telling you. But no one respects that and no one actually cares.
No.
Remember, people always revolt against authority.
Yeah. No, very true. So what would you say are the, from your perspective, because I guess different people will have different values, I guess, but from your perspective, what would you say are essential values for a leader to have?
Okay, I always get messed up when it comes to values. It's just descriptions, right? Values. Empathy, you have to care. You have to be understanding of other people's thoughts, opinions, feelings, needs, likes, dislikes. I think you have to have that if you're going to deal with people. I read a good book once called Personality Plus, because I struggled with a lot of that stuff. I had no empathy. I had no patience. I didn't really care about people's likes and dislikes. I was very much a manager, so I had to be developed into a leader, and someone told me to read that book. It's called Personality Plus by Florence Latour.
The first book you ever told me to read.
Yeah, if you want to manage, it just taught me to understand that everybody's different and there's no right or wrong. There's just that person's preferred method of doing stuff. Like, there's no good or bad. There's just loads of people get to the same outcome and conclusion. They just do it different ways. There's a million ways to get a six pack. Yeah. Right. But you just got to figure it out you. So you've got to have empathy. You've got to have resilience. God, this is where I struggle with values. See, this is where it's not scripted, right? This is where everybody knows that we don't plan the answers. I don't want to ever plan the answers to these. Qualities in people. So empathy, resilience, work ethic, positivity. And I think if you want to be a leader of people, you have to be, it's going to sound cheesy, you have to be a visionary in your field. You have to be able to, because people all have their own paths to go on, right? People have all their own goals. So if your goal and your vision isn't big enough to incorporate everybody else's goals, then who's going to follow you? And again, the higher quality of human being you want to manage, or let's just say in sales, if you want to manage a sales manager versus a sales rep, the sales manager is going to want more than the sales rep wants. Yeah. So your goals have to be bigger, because if you want that person to follow you, people have to believe that their life will be better by following you, or their career will be better than following you. So I think ambition is a big one. I think being genuine. I think being genuinely honest. Genuinely honest. Again, I'm going to say genuinely honest, because it's who you are. When people, like, I tell people, don't lie. I don't lie. I cannot lie under any circumstances. And I know people that say, don't lie, be good, but then they lie. Professionally, they don't lie. Personally, they lie. I can't. I have this bad moral. I walked back into a shop in Dubai 2 weeks ago because I left the shop with something in the buggy. It was nothing to do with getting arrested. I just couldn't morally. I didn't pay for that. Yeah. And people are like, oh, it's a big company and they've got the money. And I'm like, this is somebody's £2. Yeah. It's not mine. It's not. So I think there has to be a great leader, you can be a leader without it. You can pretend and you can do your job, but I think just honesty has to be there. People will call you bullshit eventually. And I don't think you could ever confidently, to the best of your ability, be at your best if you subconsciously know you're full of shit. Yeah.
It's exhausting as well. Who has the energy for that?
I just switch on, yeah. They don't. So, you know, and you even see that I can't lie in a house with my daughters because, you know, I'm very honest with them, whether it hurts their feelings or not. I'm like, you know, that is what it is.
Yeah.
If they can't sing, I tell them they can't sing. And if they, you know, if they don't look good, I tell them they don't look good.
Yeah. Well, honesty's the best policy, they say. Do you think then that you can, I guess, evolve into a leader? Do you think
Yes.
so you think someone without a lot of those qualities can still go on and become a great leader? Or do you think it's something like innate within?
Nah. It's not
so you
natural.
can learn to be a leader.
If you want to be a great leader, it's a choice. I wasn't naturally a great leader. I never captained anything when I was young. I never led anything. I was in charge of my brothers, but that's just because I was the oldest.
Yeah.
It was literally I definitely wasn't of leadership qualities. I definitely wasn't someone who actually cared about being a good example to anybody. Told you when I seen Jesse, and I just seen how his life was and his world was because of who he was. That's when I made a choice. And remember, if you remember that I read a book, I've read many books. I hate reading. I still to this day find it really difficult. My wife read 4 or 5 books in holiday. You know how many I read? Not a paragraph. I just come to the fact I accept that I absolutely despise reading, but I wasn't a natural leader, and no one is, to be fair. No one's a natural. We'll get into that rant about what natural is in a second, but you can learn to be anything you want to be. I learned to be a good leader. I learned to be a good leader because I made a choice that I wanted to be a certain person in my personal life and professional life, right? In the very beginning, it was monetary value and status and whatever, and then it was just because, you know, it just seemed like a better life. You go in a restaurant, people treat you nice, it seemed better than them treating you bad, right? You know, money and that will follow eventually if you're good enough. But so you got to make a choice first of all. Second of all, then I had to go seek the information and the examples. I had to go find people that I looked up to. So even now, we're doing social media stuff, we're doing podcasts. I want to be a paid speaker at some point in my life. Like I know what I do in my life in 10 years, 20 years, whatever. But there's people I look up to just now. We're not saying their names, but there's 4 or 5 people that I look at now and I'm trying to be like them. So you've got to find the right examples because you've got to make a choice to be a great leader, but then you've got to pick what type of leader you want to be and what style, and because there's all different styles, right? And then you've got to go seek the information. Then you've got to take the time out to get the information. Then you've got to practice the things that you've learned, and then you've got to get the experience of leading people, and you develop that. It's the same process as everything. But the word I hate the word natural. Not the word, sorry, that's bad. I hate it when it's used in the context of natural leader or natural salesperson or natural football player. If something was natural, you do it when you come out the womb.
Yeah.
Counting's not natural. And this thing natural. I hate when people say you're a natural. No, you're not. You caught on to something quickly. You learnt it quickly, but I don't think, I'm not natural. I'm not a natural salesperson. I'm not a natural leader. I'm not a natural business person. I'm not naturally not overweight. I'm not naturally much. Do you know what? I'm naturally the same as everybody else. I am greedy. I like indulging in things that make me feel good, and I'm really lazy. I like the idea of not doing that much and getting lots back for it. Apart from that, everything's learnt.
Yeah, I suppose a lot of people would confuse natural in the sense of those are you still learn those qualities somehow, even when you were younger.
Yeah.
So even when you're like 1 year old, you're absorbing and analysing what's going on, and so you probably start to absorb some characteristics and some qualities.
Of course you do.
So by the time you get to the age of start working, you seem like, oh, they're naturally chatty or they're naturally confident, but that was learned at some point, and whether that was at 1 year old or at 18 years old, you still learn it, don't you?
Of course you do. It's not natural, it's your environment. One of my daughters is super sociable, but she's changed school 4 or 5 times. If she'd never changed school, she might be the most unsociable wee creature on the planet.
100%.
Who knows? So remember someone actually saying to Tiger Woods something about his natural ability and natural talent, and Tiger Woods was practicing at the time, and he famously took his glove off and he says, I'll show you what natural looks like, and his hand was bleeding.
Wow.
Like, there's natural.
Yeah.
What was he saying? It's not natural, man.
Yeah.
It's his pain. I remember watching Lewis Hamilton talk as people like natural driver, right? Naturally good at F1 and was born to be a racer and all that's nonsense. And I remember him talking about his dad. So Lewis Hamilton's really famous for his ability to take corners better than anybody, but he takes the corners better because he brakes later. So he's a big risk taker. I remember the first time he done it. So the first time I watched Lewis Hamilton was the first time he won F1, and it was the last race, and he had to finish fifth to win the championship. And it was the last corner, and he took what would be deemed as the riskiest, but like he didn't brake to the corner and pull in. Like it was either like my car's going to explode, I'm going to die, or I'm winning.
Yeah.
To get fifth place, not first place, to win. That's when I fell in love with Lewis Hamilton. I'm like, what a guy. Like that was all or nothing, that corner, all or nothing. I'm like, what a guy, right? So I felt, not a huge F1 fan, but fell in love with Hamilton, right? I remember watching an interview with him. And so you'd be like a naturally good driver, unbelievable. You know, he's so young, blah, blah. And you hear all the journalists. But then I watched him talk about his dad training him when he was young in the karts. And he says his dad taught him, his dad says to him, if we brake, here's how you're going to beat everybody. If it tells you to brake here, you're going to brake here. And you're going to brake later than everybody, and that's where you're going to gain an edge in every corner from everybody else. You're going to learn how to brake later than everybody else. And so he was talking about the run on this thing in his go-kart. And he says that in the corner there was a pond. The guy says, so what happened? He's like, I was in the pond a lot.
Yeah.
He's like, so with time and time again, we'd go past it. I'd go in the pond. My dad would come, we'd lift the car out of the pond, we'd go back again, and we'd keep doing it until we didn't get in the pond anymore. And he learned how to brake and how to handle the car and get around the corners. But to watch him on those corners, or I sit in the cockpit, it's nothing.
Yeah.
Because he made it second nature.
It's drilled in.
Yeah, practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. But first of all, you need to know what to do. So you need to want to do something. You need to learn the information. You need to digest the information so you understand it. You need to practice it until you get it perfect. Then you need to practice perfectionism. You need to practice it being perfect. Only then will it look natural.
Yeah.
Ronaldo, Messi, famously turn up early, go home late. Everybody goes on holiday. These guys are training. Michael Jordan didn't, before he was great, they didn't win the Bulls never won a championship, and no one took a holiday that season. They won everything for the next 4 or 5 years because they took a summer holiday. Like, come on.
Yeah.
It's not. There's no natural ability. Again, if you read about Michael Jordan, that's not natural.
No, not at all.
He worked for that.
Weren't people surprised when he was like picked or something because they just didn't see?
Oh, it was totally. Couldn't go into his high school basketball team at one point. We're not getting sports stars backgrounds, but if you read Floyd Mayweather, I remember someone saying about he trains at 2 a.m. He's nocturnal when everybody's sleeping. He's training, and I remember watching this dude called Zab Judah. So we're talking about boxing here. They were talking about how come nobody beat Floyd, and he's like, how did he beat the guy who's got everything but trains like he's got nothing? And any journalist that spent time with him says the reason why he's the best boxer in the world is because he trains better than everybody else.
Stop.
But everybody uses this natural and defense. No, it's not natural. He just works harder behind the scenes than anybody else does. So, I don't think people are natural born leaders. I think your environment and your coaching from your parents and your peers, people you go to school with, teams you play for, might develop those qualities and those skills by the time you get to your professional life. But I don't think anybody's born a leader.
So you're not a natural then, going by what you've said. You're not a natural.
Nope. Takes a lot
leader.
of effort. Yep.
So what were some challenges, particularly in the beginning, and what were the biggest learning curves for you, and what are some of the biggest challenges you faced?
What are some of the biggest challenges a new leader faces? Understanding that your words hold weight. Understanding that everything that comes out your mouth has an impact on anybody who can hear it. Being a sales leader more than anything, being a salesperson more than anything, in an environment where you're getting paid to chat, was quite chatty with no filter. And, I'll say that again, like words hold weight. So I think the first challenge I faced was learning to only let things come out my mouth that were a positive impact and added value to other people versus things coming out my mouth just because I thought it. That was a challenge. The second challenge is exhausting. Absolutely exhausting, because if you're the leader, everybody's always looking. And if everybody's always looking, you can't step out of place. It's exhausting. Sometimes dangerous when I'm driving to the office not to be late. Sometimes I would definitely get arrested if someone seen me driving, but I just can't. I'd rather get arrested than be late.
Yeah.
At least if I'm late and I got arrested, that's a really good excuse for being late, right?
It's a bit more justifiable, yeah.
I'd rather get arrested for my driving than turn up 2 minutes late.
Yeah.
Hope police don't
And
watch
you
us.
definitely
Just
yeah.
follow me in the morning. But
Easy one there.
But I think leadership is exhausting. I think it is constantly trying to be. It's like why a parent's exhausted. Being a good parent, and a good leader's exhausting, because you're constantly thinking. You have to think about what other people think. You have to watch what comes out your mouth. You have to be the perfect example. When things are wrong, you have to stay calm. We call it the duck theory. You know, inside, good leaders will flap, right? And if you watch war movies, there's good examples of this. The leader, everybody's panicking, there's bombs going off. And there was one with Mel Gibson in it about taking a hill, and I can't remember the name of the movie. Again, another good example, but what leadership is order out of chaos and calm under pressure. Well, there's bombs going off and people are hiding in trenches, and he's on the phone, walking about on the phone with bombs going off and not jumping when the bombs going off.
Yeah.
That's a leader. But staying calm when it's the last thing in your mind, when you're freaking out. Did lockdown freak me out? 100%. Did I know it was going to happen? No. Am I a wee bit scared? Of course. But if I'm the leader and I'm freaking out, how's everybody else going to react? Just like if you watch Kid, you don't have to watch a kid, but if you just be around kids, right? And you watch how kids react based on how you react.
Yeah.
My kids run up and they've got a cut in the leg. I get two options. I can say, oh, my baby, that's horrible. Let me get a plaster and go, oh, that looks sore. If I say, oh, that looks sore, oh, that's horrible, oh, my darling, what do? They cry more, right?
Yeah.
But if I go, what is it? And they go, the cut. And I go, what cut? What? That? Is that sore? Really? And they go, yeah. And I go, you're crying for that? I'm not crying anymore.
Yeah. Well, you see kids when they fall over, they look up, they stand up and they look at the parent to decide if they're going to cry or not.
Yes. And so even as a parent, your job is to lead right. Nothing like, even though you're freaking out inside about something that happens, you have to look like everything's cool, calm, and collective. That's exhausting. Being a leader's exhausting because you have to be positive about everything. You have to be the person who seems like they know what they're doing all the time and being in the ball even when you don't have a clue what you're doing and you're not in the ball, right? Because you're not always going to be in the ball. So I think the second mistake was thinking that it was a switch on and a switch off thing. I thought I could just turn up and I thought it was a job and thought it was a title and all that kind of stuff. But then I realised it was exhausting because, you know, you're on show 24/7 and people expect you to be the best version of what they're trying to be or a better version of what they try to be. So that could be, again, if you're a PT or a health, it'll be exhausting because your diet has to be stricter than the people you're coaching and your training has to be harder than the people you're coaching. That's exhausting. So my mistake was underestimating how difficult it is to be a leader. It's really rewarding, but it's also really difficult.
Yeah, I think leadership in a lot of ways is seen as very glamorous and seen as very like
it's horrible.
You know, you have the nice cars and the nice watches and you get the good money and all this sort of stuff, and I think it's seen as like this really shiny destination to get to. But I think what a lot of people don't see is all the other stuff that you have to do to allow you to do that.
Yeah.
Like you always say, like, you know, my job is to fix the things that are going wrong, or my job is to deal with that. So your job is to deal with the negative things.
Yep.
Like, but that's not what everyone sees on the surface. On the outside, to everyone, it's shiny and exciting and so cool and all that sort of stuff. But I don't think people sometimes see that the flip of leadership is also having to deal with everything else that comes along with it. And it's the stuff that's not shiny, and it's the stuff that's not exciting, and if it's the stuff that's hard, that is equally as important, and equally, probably more so, taken up of your time. And that's the stuff that I think is also what people get wrong about leadership.
And this is the funny part, right? And I don't even know if it's funny actually, or why I'm saying funny, but a leader's job is to make their job look easy. They have. That's what I mean by the hard. Like even when things are horrible and you're dealing with all these horrible things, you're making all these. So you've got to. You're managing 1,000 people. When one person does something, you got to think about the 999 other people and the impact that decision with that person makes on them. You got to bring that into the decision you make with that. So even to the level of decision making that you have to put up with, the more people you lead, the harder the decisions you got to have to make, because there's cause and effect. Well, that one person that you're dealing with feels like maybe you're being hard on them, but it's not. But you're 999 other people to think about and how they see things. So there's a lot of pressure comes with it. But a leader's job, remember, is to bring order to chaos and look calm under pressure and look like nothing's a problem and be the person who's reassuring. So would you follow someone who looked stressed out? Now, if leaders were to be honest all the time, they probably got anxiety and stress. Of course they're dealing with anxiety, of course they're dealing with stress, but they don't let that come out on the surface. They don't put that to their people, because who would want to follow that person? Let's just say war again. It's almost like we're going to go to war and they're freaking out going, oh my God, there's 10,000 of them and there's only 1,000 of us and I've only got like 16 bullets and I don't know if we're going, we might actually die, but you know what, guys, we're going to go get our best shot. No, I'm not coming. Yeah. I'm not.
I'll stay here. Let me know how it goes.
That's why I like that movie 300. There's a scene in the movie, right? If you want to see what someone calm under pressure looks like, and again, it's fictional, right? It's not a real movie, I know that, all right?
God, break everyone's hearts.
I know. But anyway, there's this scene in the movie, and there's loads of scenes where leadership's shown, but the whole what's expected for somebody to lead and how they react versus someone who doesn't lead reacts. There's a wee scene where they've got like, I can describe them as wee villagers coming to fight with these big, strong Spartans, right? So they go and they creep over to see that. They think they've demolished the army. Demolish all these boats, and then they sneak up to double check they've demolished the army or took out most of the army. And so they look over this hill, and it's just boat after boat after boat, and it's just these thousands of soldiers. Now bear in mind, the movie's called 300, there's 300 of them. 300 Spartans plus some other guys, maybe 500. So wee guy's looking over, and one wee guy freaks out. We're going to die, blah, blah, blah. We need to run, we need to hide in the house, blah, 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 blah. And he looks round to the Spartan who's laughing. And he's like, how can you laugh at this?
Just Gerald Butler.
No, it wasn't him actually. It wasn't Butler at this point, but it was, I don't even know who the actor was, but the guy's laughing. And you see the wee guy go, why are you laughing? And he's like, we're going to die. Why is that funny? He's like, I know we're going to die, but what a glorious death. And I'm like, and you see the other guy just get calm straight away, because his calmness has an effect on his. But if he freaks out, then he freaks out. What does that equal? Freak out. And then for the most part of the movie, these wee guys follow the Spartans, because the Spartans are fearless. The Spartans aren't scared. Like, they're up against these 10,000 men, but they don't. You'd think they were up against 5. That.
Quick.
Go.
Spoiler alert. Did they die?
Yeah, man. Oh. Apart from one who gets sent back to tell the story.
I'm really hoping that you would say no.
It's supposed to be another one coming out, but there is some truth to it. There's a story about the Spartans and 300 men who went up against the big Persian army, and there is some truth. And I think it's a Jack Snyder movie, so it's all like animation and done with blue screen and very unreal, and everybody's got the perfect body in it. If you like a six-pack, watch 300.
Okay, I don't need to watch it now. I've got the
more six-packs in that than a Mr. Muscle show, man. Everybody's got a six-pack. But I actually know that they shaded them in and drew them on a lot of the guys.
Really?
It's quite fictional. Watch
so
it.
They've got to feel like dad bod coming on.
No, they got like, no, they were fit, but they actually, it's exaggerated. It's exaggerated in the movie.
They've got the donuts out between takes.
Yeah, they probably did, didn't they?
It's all right. We'll just airdrop it in, airbrush it in.
I don't know. So yeah. That's it. And I think another mistake, third mistake as a leader, is I expected everybody else to be me. I expect people to be at my standards. Like, you got to understand as a leader that people will probably, your best people will be 2/3 of who you are.
Yeah.
But that's why you're the leader, right? You're the leader because you're the first amongst equals. You're the leader because you're the best in your field. You're the top 1% in your field. My mistake as a leader is I expected everybody else to see things the way I seen it, do things the way I do it, have my work ethic, have my ambition, have my drive. That's not. It's like Alexander the Great expecting everybody to see the world he's seen it. They never. But that's why people actually need leadership. People seek it and need it because, you know, not everybody's built like that. I think it's some statistic like 7% of the planet controls the other 93, not in a conspiracy way, but they lead or manage in some way, shape or form. That means 93% of the planet accepts or seeks guidance from someone else, which is leadership, right?
I think people who are in the thick of just starting their leadership journey and just starting to kind of, learn to be a leader, what would your advice be to them? What advice would you give people who are just starting on this journey? I guess to help them avoid some mistakes, or just a perspective that you would give them.
I think two things to focus on: focusing on you and focus on caring.
Mm-hmm.
Just focus on you being a better version of you in whatever capacity, professionally, personally, and obviously there's loads of things that'll come under that, right? So too many leaders focusing on, like, if you're a better version of you, you give people something more to strive to be. And if you care, you'll spend time with your people. And if you spend time with your people and you're better at doing something, you'll be able to relay that information over easier because you want to spend time together and to look up to more. So in essence, another way of thinking about leadership is I want to be someone's hero. And you look up to your hero, you dress like your hero, you want to be like your hero, you act like your hero. I told you I smile like Jesse. Guy's my hero.
Yeah.
Guy, literally no heroes growing up in my life. The guy's the only person my whole life I would say is a hero. I had no uncles, I had nothing. I never looked up to anybody in my life saying I want to be like you. No superhero. And if posters on my wall, like the Hulk or Spider-Man and that stuff. So I think start to look at it like you have to be people's champion and you have to be people's hero in your field. Whether you're in data analytics, whether you're in sports coaching, whether you're in fitness, whether you're in telesales, whether you're in car sales, whether you're a cleaner, it doesn't matter. You need people to look and go, first and foremost, for them to look at you like their leader, they have to look and go, I wish I was as good as bleep as that person. I wish I could do bleep as well as that person. I wish I had that person's attitude, I had that person's work ethic. That's when people start to look at you as a champion or a hero. And then if you actually care about those people getting better, it's really easy because all you have to teach is what you do. And it's really easy to teach what you do because you just say, watch me and copy.
Yeah.
Watch me and copy. How do I get a six pack? Here's what I eat and here's what I do for training. That's how I get six. You follow that, you'll be all right.
Yeah.
How do I clean that window a wee bit better? Watch me clean the window. And because think about the relationship, right? If you care about your people and your people care about you, that makes a great relationship. Someone wants to listen and wants to be around. You get people, when people associate you with adding value to them, when people associate you with them feeling better and getting better, it gives them dopamine when they're around you. We all know we're dopamine junkies, right? So if someone's a dopamine junkie, if I get people to fall in love with me, if I get people to associate me with every time they spend time with me, they leave better or they feel better, people are always going to be wanting to be around you. And if people want to be you, they're going to listen to what you want to say. So I think focusing on you always. So if I want my team to be better, I need to be better. That's it. And if I want people to care, I've got to say I've got to care about my people. That's it. If you do those two things, if nothing else, if you just focused on those two things, you'll become a better leader in whatever industry you want. So if you want to become a better leader, just to reiterate, you should do two things. The first thing is you should focus totally on you becoming the better example as a person and as a professional. And two, you should genuinely care about your people getting better and your people having a good time. I'll give you an example. Even me, like we work in an industry where we pay commission. Like my people get more commissions per customer than other people in there. I care more about my people. I gave up. A lot of people don't know. I was talking to the accountant about this morning and she gets my vision. I took away £1,000 a week of my money and gave it back to my team every week so my people were better. I realised that my people weren't making as much money as they should do. And I thought that was wrong. So I made sure the easiest way for me to do that is for me to pay people more money so my people have a better time. But when I make my people have a better time, that actually makes me have a better time because everybody's happier. They also know I've done it. So what did I just buy? I just bought loyalty.
Yeah, true.
They know I've done more for them than anybody else in the industry is doing for anybody else. So again, that sets me apart as being a better leader for them. And I'm not doing that to make me look better than everybody else. I'm doing that because I legitimately looked at people's commissions and thought they don't get enough. That's not fair in them. Let me sacrifice something for me. I sacrificed that. I was talking to the accountant this morning about cash flow.
It's an investment for you as well.
And she says to me, "Well, it'll pay off long term." And I'm like, "I know it'll pay off long term, but that's leadership. Put my people before me. $1,000 a week. It was going into my bank account." And I'm like, and I'm saying roughly it'll be more now because we're doing more sales and there's more people. But at the time it was £1,000 a week, where I'm like, I don't want that. I'd rather it went to the team because I want my people to have a good time. Yeah. Some of my people were stressed, and I'm like, I don't want my people stressed. It wasn't a selfish act, it was unselfish. How many people do you know that? I know a lot of people that would do that. I don't. Jesse done it. It's easy. I know he done it. I know he lost money sometimes on sales I done because he paid me more commissions. I know he did. Eventually told me, but I knew the whole time there was times where he didn't make money from work that me or other people were doing. So we were all right. And that's how I knew he was a genuine leader. Who gives up money for other people?
Yeah.
So that's my last point, which is you got to be willing to sacrifice things for yourself and put other people before you, which is not natural.
No.
And that's a wrap.
Oh. Once you mentally check out, you really check out, don't you? You're done.
Okay, we're gonna finish the podcast by saying there's a difference between pretend leaders and leaders, and there's a difference between trainers and leaders. Okay. Leaders show people what to do. Trainers tell people what to do.
I think that's a great place to end on. Like I said, we've only got through 5 questions. So we'll definitely, I think, do leadership again next time, probably.
I will elaborate on all those questions, but at least we can throw some wee teasers out for everybody.
So we'll do more leadership next time, and focus a bit more on, I guess, strategies of a leader as well, I would say. But apart from that, thank you so much, and we will see you next time.